Hello everyone, my name is Nathan. I'm Eternal6 and I make educational content about Deadlock, including free coaching. If you're interested, check out the link in the description. But today we're going to be talking about the patch that dropped yesterday, so some pretty big changes. And we're going to be taking a look at the biggest losers and winners when it comes to the items. So one of the biggest item changes this patch was the addition of this new item, Transcendent Cooldown. So this item is basically just what Superior Cooldown was previously. So previously, cooldown reduction just gave you cooldown on both your items and your abilities. But with the patch yesterday, it got separated. So we have ability cooldown reduction and item cooldown reduction now. Those are different things. So for example, Enchanter's Emblem gives ability cooldown reduction now and no longer reduces your item cooldowns. So compressed cooldown still works the exact same. It's 22% ability cooldown reduction on whichever ability you imbue. But then Superior Cooldown no longer gives cooldown on your items, which means if you want item cooldown reduction as well, you're gonna need to spend another 3,200 souls, which is a pretty significant investment. And that basically means that item cooldowns basically just got nerfed across the board. And you kind of need a pretty good reason to pick up this item. So for example, Pocket, who really likes to build 4 active items, you're probably still gonna want to pick up this item because the item cooldown reduction is actually still really valuable. But of course, it will take longer to get to this point. And unless you got 3 or 4 active items or other items like Mystic Shot that benefit from item cooldown reduction, I would kind of just avoid buying this item. Now, what this cooldown change actually impacts as well is the item called the Sacrifice. And if you just quickly looked at the patch notes, you may have seen that this item got a cooldown reduction actually. So the active went from 260 second cooldown to 250. So you may think it's a buff, but because of the item cooldown removal on the 3200 superior cooldown, this item is actually nerfed pretty significantly because the default downtime on this is 90 seconds. So basically when you use it and it runs out after 160 seconds, you'll have a 90 seconds. So that's 1.5 minute downtime where all this item does is just give you some out of combat regen, and it's basically just a glorified monster round. So this item really relied on the item cooldown reduction you got previously. And now if you want to get something similar, you're gonna have to, again, spend 3,200 souls extra. I'd say this item definitely isn't worth picking up early anymore, but if you still choose to pick it up, and you're gonna wanna pick up Transcendent Cooldown pretty soon after. But in general, I would say Cult of Sacrifice is not a great item anymore. Also a quick heads up, because I've seen people spread misinformation. Who would do that on the internet? What? That Arcane Surge actually gives duration to Cult of Sacrifice, and that is not true. I've tested it. Not gonna do it again right now because it's kind of annoying, but you can test it yourself. But it doesn't work. And if it did, that would be a weird bug because this item specifically says that it gives ability range and ability duration. It doesn't change anything about items. Alright, so next up in the loser category, we have Fortitude, which lost all of its weapon damage it gave previously. So it used to give 27% weapon damage when you were above the 75% health threshold. Now it only gives the movement speed. And also the health regen got nerfed from 3% max health to 2%. So that's also pretty significant. I think this item is kind of just dead. There's no real reason to buy this. Alright, so I just quickly tested it. It took me about 45 to 50 seconds to heal back to full with Fortitude, starting at 400 health. And going back to base to heal took about 35 seconds. So that's 10 to 15 seconds faster. So yeah, in general, I would just say this item kind of sucks. And instead, I would rely on out-of-combat healing from items such as Monster Rounds. Well, all of these are all great items. Battlefest, Enchanter's Emblem. These I'll talk about in a bit as well. Also give out-of-combat regen. And of course, Healing Rite is also still an amazing item. It's gonna heal you for a flat 300, scaling with Spirit Power. And it also gives 2 sprint speed while it's active. And worst case, of course, if you're so low you can't really do anything anymore, you just go back to base because that's faster. Especially if you have a zipline boost, of course. Now, in other MOBAs, there's just a button that every hero has where you just press it and you channel for a few seconds and then you teleport back to base, basically, to heal and buy items. But for some reason, this game doesn't have that, and I think they should add it. I think they should normalize just going back to base to heal, because going back to base with a zipline just kind of feels bad, even though it pretty much clearly is objectively better than buying an item as Fortitude. But it just feels worse, so yeah. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about that idea to just add a teleport back to base button. Alright, so that's it for the loser items this patch. And now we're gonna talk about some of the biggest winners. So first off, we obviously have Counterspell here, which got some absolutely insane buffs. So it got 100 bonus health and 8 spirit power, which are already insane stats. And it now also heals you for 150 when you successfully counter a spell. I think the cooldown actually got buffed as well, but of course that kind of cancels out with the item cooldown changes. But still, that's very nice. So when you successfully parry something, and that's very easy to do because it has a 1 second spell parry duration. So it has a 1 second window where any spell that hits you will grant you the buffs. It'll heal you for 150. and it will give you 20 spirit power and 2 movement speed for 6 seconds. Now, is this item a must buy on every hero, every game? Probably not, but I think we'll be seeing it a lot more. And finally, I want to highlight these shielding items, especially the spirit shielding ones. So these two just keep getting buffed every patch. So previously they didn't give movement speed, I believe, and now they do. And the movement speed got buffed again, the cooldown got buffed again. And especially the spirit shielding one is insanely easy to continuously proc. So for example, let's see, Yamato slash procs it. Wraith, if she throws like 2 cards on you, she already procs it. Pocket, of course, procs it very easily. 7 does. Shiv does. If he dashes through you, it procs. Sinclair, if he hits you with his bolts. Holiday, single barrel, procs it, easy, no problem. Great Talent, single arrow, procs it, no problem. Calico, if she goes in on you, hits some gloom bombs, or just hits you with Cold Front and Spirit Strike, or Cold Front and her ult or something, already procs. Geist, you get hit by a single Geist Bomb, and you now get a barrier. And don't be fooled by the name, even though it says Spirit Shielding, the barrier it gives is universal. So that 400 barrier works against both weapon and spirit damage. And also, the barrier benefits from resist, so if you have Enchanter's Emblem or Battlefest, that also works on that 400. And it also has a 1.1 spirit scaling, so if your character likes to buy spirit items, then this item also becomes better. Now the weapon shielding one is also decent, I'd say, but I think this one is just so much easier to proc by every hero in the game. Because even the Dynamo is probably gonna proc this on you, but the weapon shielding one he's gonna struggle with, and same for Kelvin, for example. And again, both of these also give out of combat regen, which is very nice in the mid game. And actually I have one bonus item I want to talk about, which is Slowing Hex, because I don't really see a lot of people build this item, even though it's really good. And they gave it a very small, almost kind of a pointless buff, but it's just kind of to get people to buy this more. So it got 0.5 sprint speed, which is really not a lot, but this item in general is just crazy because it reduces people's dash distance, it slows them, and it silences their movement-based abilities and items. So of course it disables something like Warpstone, but it's especially good against heroes that rely on movement abilities. So for example, Infernus can't use his Flame Dash while this is on him. Calico can't use her ult and her dash and Ava. Abrams can't use his shoulder charge. Vindicta can't fly, but if she is already in the air, it doesn't really do a lot against her. Wraith can't TP away. Mirage can't use his tornado. Lash can't use his grapple. Shiv can't use his ult and his dash. But yeah, this item is really good. And it's also a component for Vortex Swap, which also got buffed. The capture radius went up by a bit. I think these items are good on really anyone. They're just situational. But especially if you're a support player, I would really consider picking these up. Alright, so that was a quick overview of some of the biggest winners and losers when it comes to items this patch. I really hope you enjoyed and learned something. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Again, I make educational content, including free coaching. Check out the link in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you. Bye-bye.